things are better now and how they were in the past. I was just learning about IDs and how in the past governments used to have control over how someone could identify who they are, and if they didn't have an ID, that was considered some kind of offense. Why in the world would you accept that someone's gonna have to make you carry around a slip of paper? For what reason? You simply are who you say you are. When you have an NFT, you're able to sign it with a personal signature that could only come from you. So the way that you verify something to be true is that we validate each other. At your birth certificate will be signed by your mother and your father and your grandparents, if they are still around, by whoever will be joining in to your family and be spending time around you aware of your existence. Those are the only people you really need to care about in terms of validating your public documents. This is who you are. This is my ID. And then we trade signatures to verify that, yeah, I validate that. That's who you are. Because that's who you are at that moment in time. You don't ever ask someone to pull out their ID to verify who they are, but if they say they are who they are, you would validate that. Now you just do that, validate someone, but you'd validate them over the blockchain, like using your public signature on them. For the deed to the house, the individual's public signature that you would need would be the previous owners. In that case, you could see that that deed has been signed, how far back it goes, the whole history of who has owned it. It's just there on the blockchain, and that's all the info you need to be like, oh yeah, cool. I can see all the way back to when this was created, and it was created by a home builder. Like, okay, and it goes all the way up, and it's traded hands once, and it's just built into a network that just verifies truth. And how much of our society do we waste time just verifying truth? Someone says something, but they need you to go down to some odd office, and they need you to get fingerprints or sign your name on something, and then you have to immediately leave. All of that does is verify the truth of what we say. And if we incorporate the blockchain into our lives in every capacity possible, then what someone says just becomes true. If they have a home for sale, they do, and they just own a home and they are selling it. Otherwise, someone would have to say, I am trying to sell the home of this person. This is the home. And you would take them to the block, and you could go and look up the history of that home and see all the previous listings of it. You could see how it was sold before in its history. And on the unfortunate reality of looking back on the history of home sales is that home sale prices have been systematically influenced by a vast network of banks in order to supply people with home loans so that everybody can afford a home. But by making everybody can get a home a part of credit, it ends up draining real wealth. Wealth that you and I value as human beings because we are biological creatures. Real wealth is drained up into the banks and the 1%. And they have been doing this for, 600 years now? Ever since banks were created. If they can create the money, and they create most of the money, they create 90% of the money through loans. And they hold on to the 10% in their vaults. Most of our money isn't real. And the only real money we have is cryptocurrency, because we didn't know what we were missing out on up until now. It's a so much better currency than what we have. It's not even funny, because it incorporates so many extra features. For one, it incorporates truth. It incorporates property. I keep explaining all of this because I just hope that whoever's listening to it understands that this is not something that you can not take action on. We must switch to the blockchain, and we have to do it now. You've seen home prices across the United States. It's going to crash, and there's no two ways about that, because things just don't go up forever. Not when it hasn't changed at all. If it records something's value, why would people continue to value homes more and more and more? The point of living a good life is for costs to come down. The basic assets of living a good life are taken out of our hands by a wealthy elite and then loaned back to us, where they keep the deed or title the entire time. And if we do not pay up 100%, we do not get it. That is an abusive system. They abuse us every day because we keep paying them with this damned government money that we have to have. We have the option to take money and make it free, where we're able to do whatever we want with it because it's our money, and we don't They've got all the homes, and they've got all the cars, and they've got the mansions, and they've got planes. They have luxury cars sitting in garages all year long, taking one or two of them out just for a joyride. That's a lot of money. How does that amount of money get into your hands? Because someone had to pay for it. Who was doing that? Where does it come from? This system is old and entrenched because fiat currency has been around for a long time. And this is where you can't just look at a single country like the United States, which is where I'm from. It's the one I've been looking at the longest. But even beyond that, these rulers have been abusing our lives for selfish gains for a long time now. They've had aspirations, really big goals, but they're still personal, downright murderous. What do you think is going to happen after they buy up all of the homes in a year and some 90% of us are renting our homes from the banks or from other individuals, landlords who take out these huge loans to buy these inflated price homes so that effectively he's literally just a middleman between him and the bank? When you trace it back, banks own all of it. Depending on how high up you go inside of a bank or in the financial sector, you really have to be psychopathic in order to get high up inside of the banks or in the financial sector. I mean, what is life really like when you're making $2 million a month? What in the world are you doing with that much money and you're still working? How do you not just save 90% of that, 95% of that? Put that into just a safe place. These financial instruments are deceptive. And somehow they always end up coming out on top of it all. And if they're always coming out on top and they're already the biggest, that's abusive. And they're still getting bigger, the financial sector. How big can the financial sector get? Because we know that the financial sector is literally just money that goes in and then circles around with each other. But what that is its own separate economy that is disconnected from the world we live in. And it's based on the valuations of how we value businesses and assets and imaginary pieces of a company, pieces of history. What a perfect example for the blockchain. The financial sector was what we had before we had the blockchain. It was how we kept track of the history of pieces of history. Extremely rapid ownership transfer of imaginary pieces of things. If we're going to keep the financial sector, it should probably have its own blockchain so that it cannot interfere with the general economy's blockchain. It's all just humans out there. There are no gods. We need to work together in order to survive. If we are going to make a change and convert everyone we know to the blockchain, and the easiest way I know to do that is to get a Celcius account. It keeps track of everything for you and gives you a great APR that is unheard of. So just switch your savings over to that. You can keep using fiat money for your checking if you have to, but if you can, just convert everyone fully to the blockchain so that it's effortless to pay and receive money with each other. And don't worry about any legal repercussions of it because the blockchain is more permanent than legal. It replaces all of those protections that you used to have, and now people can only say the truth to one another. If they own something, they have to show the certificate, and you'll be able to see, yes, it is perfectly true. It's computerized honor. If you have a value, if you have a history, if you have any certificates or ownerships that make you stand out, it's all permanent and immutably placed onto the blockchain. This changes the way our human society will inevitably function, and it is a tool that will make a more fair and democratic society that does not involve these abusive third parties interfering with individual actions. They have dictated to us what is and is not fair because they hold the power. So we will, of course, do whatever the fuck you want, man, because we don't want to fuck with you because you're gonna beat the shit out of us. Well, no, that's not necessary any longer. The blockchain replaces that. It keeps track of the history. It keeps track of what is true and false. And all of the effort we used to go through in order to cooperate with one another while trusting each other, it all goes away, and we just trust and we work for each other and we're cooperative. And I look forward to a day where I can simply simply trust what everybody says, and they trust what I say, because everything is recorded onto the blockchain in order to keep track of that all. And we live in a world where there is peace and harmony, as all of the extra financial stress that keeps us working for no damn reason, because we have so many loans, things that we can afford but we can't really afford. And if the banks are gonna own everything, then why not just own nothing at all? Why not just be a minimalist, so that you can just not have monthly payments and live a life free from debt, which our children will now never know, because we encourage them, we adults pressure these children into signing these obviously bad financial decisions of enjoy. Oh my God, what the fuck have we done? No wonder. What have we done? There are a lot of bullshit jobs. A lot of the employment that we have right now is filled up with people who, yeah, they have a job, but it's like somewhere in the government or somewhere high up, or like a temp or some fall through the cracks gradient. There's a lot of people who go to work, but they don't really have a job, you know what I mean? And they have to keep coming because they need to be paid, because if they are not paid, then how are they going to afford the monthly payments? The monthly payments keep them there. We're not taught from a young age to save money, and that money is a real thing, and it is not a joke. Money is how you will afford the lifestyle that you want to live. If you want to live a simple lifestyle, then save little or save a lot, but at some point you will not need to do anything. You will simply live the life you want without thinking about it, and that is the beauty of the blockchain. If you want to afford an expensive lifestyle, then you work harder or for longer in order to afford that lifestyle. We are creating giant public tools that perfectly distribute evenly to everyone, externalizing control of a distributed economy under individual control, by which I mean each of us will be represented by a node, and on that node will be listed a history of our life, so that anything we say is true, and if we try to say a damn thing that is false, it's instantly found out, so no one does it. We live in a system of honor that has been lost to commercialism over America's life. And if we work hard enough converting our society to the blockchain, we can live in a society of honor again that many privileged among these listeners may not understand we have lost, if they have always lived in a society of honor and were raised from their birth to now when they are listening to it, to always tell the truth and to not manipulate reality. When Alexander Hamilton created the federal bank, he did so to increase government control, federal government control over the states. He saw that during the war, the United States would not be able to field an army correctly without a federal government. And he was right. If the US did not have a federal central bank to increase federal government control, the United States probably would not have taken off. It would have whimpered as the states fought and bickered and have been nothing, or maybe a minor player, something you really don't read about because you wouldn't be born there. You would have been born in some other country, possibly. Do you ever think it's funny that it's essentially random who you're born to? Because how could you have influenced it in any way, or anyone or anything have influenced it in any way? You were born to two parents if you were lucky. The world is not fair, and the main aim of our economy should be to make those who use it as fair as possible so that they can exist in the glory of what we have produced. We're the #1 country, right? So how come so many are suffering? Maybe because so damn much of it goes to a very wealthy elite. And yes, things are very distributed now. So there's a lot of cases where programmers and engineers and businessmen have extremely high success compared to all of the other men. And that makes them alpha dog, which, I mean, we're all monkeys, so people want to put in a lot of effort to do that. Our ancestors lived in nature, and nature is a harsh beast. Nature is a found home. Nature is being at the mercy of the weather. Nature is tragedy every week. Nature is a quick death. We found society, which is a walled garden within chaos. At the birth of humanity, we created something new, and we believed that it couldn't have been us that had created the something new, and we didn't understand what that something new was. We just thought that life was better and it was nice. What had changed was that we cooperated with one another, but not because of a personal relationship, or if it is a personal relationship, it is smaller at its essential level because there is not enough time. We can maintain relationships with very little contact. Often you can meet up with strangers, and if you're in a good mood and they're in a good mood, you can trust them, and they will be a wild character. It'll be so fun for you. What could be more fun than meeting up with like 2 or 3 strangers and getting to know them, knowing the whole time that you would be safe? It's like uncovering a whole new novel. What is all of this? It's so interesting, and we're driven to that interest because it is good for us as a species. It all comes down to the DNA. It's why we're here at all. To be alive is to be DNA. To be alive is to be driven to propagate. That's what this molecule is, and we are living that life, the life of propagation. And in human terms, that is a complex path. You've got many different choices to choose from, and a complex social world to navigate, all the while using advanced magical technology that you will never fully grasp how it was created. But somehow these things around us were designed by geniuses and mass-produced by huge factories where things are mostly automated and then shipped to us by a vast network of people who are all just doing their job. Like, they show up here, they do this thing that they do, and they don't have to understand it that well, and they get paid a certain amount per hour, and because of that, everybody's happy. I'm not proposing to change any of that. That is wonderful. If that is what we are describing capitalism as, is a vast network of people who are all just showing up to do their job each day, and things are just going well for everybody, that's a good system. What we unfortunately have now is a lot of people who are suffering without any form of income, and so cannot participate in this system of plenty. Grifters and rascals at the top who are taking advantage of us and abusing the fact that they have large amounts of money in order to get more money, or to create more money and then tax us on it. Damn, it's that all of us here together are able to participate in the glory that is this earth. Thank you for being born. We know you didn't choose it. We would appreciate it if you stayed, but you may leave at any time. That is your right as a human, to participate in life as long as you want to. And it should be everyone's job to make it so that people want to stay and they want to give back. That is what human existence is. All of us being here together, spending our days of our lives together. We can find each other over the internet and we can grow as big as we can. But if the banks or government ever try to pressure us into stop growing, that is when we would need to fight back, because they don't need to exist. And if they are going to exist, they will serve us instead of us serving them. And it will be that way for their entire life until they are either squandered or they live long with humanity. But if the government and banks are to survive into the future, they will need to make amends for the pressures that they put on the rest of us. We spend our whole lives just to own a home. Owning a home should be a given. It should simply just be given away. We can build homes much cheaper now, especially if we build them much closer together and we don't require parking. But all these government codes make it so that home builders don't have flexibility. So much is assumed from an old mindset. We have new magic technology that the old people could never have thought of. And now the laws and regulations can't keep up because the government is it's a limited number of people making decisions in a room. Like, they're floundering under the weight of their responsibility and they're trying to get it right. They're trying to be just and honorable, but they can't do everything and please everyone. And what we really need is just democracy. Maybe this made sense in 1776. But it doesn't make sense now. Now we have phones. We have the internet. We can really communicate with each other. Like, really communicate. And we are very big. And we need a more robust system of making decisions than what we have right now. And the only way that we are going to get that is if we have a system that verifies truth so that we can all get along. This is the next upgrade of the number of people that you can keep in your head all at the same time. It was 150. Well, if you can trust everybody everybody that you meet because they use the blockchain and everything they say is verified when it relates to what they own. If they bought a bag of peanuts last week, then you would be able to see that there's a transaction there for a bag of peanuts. It's just trust. It's just trust. It's trustless. Anyone who doesn't have any business knowing anything about you, to them, you are just a random number. The only people who would be interested in your life are those that are close to you. And in fact, in Cardano, if you want to create a brand new public address, you can do so. That way it can help keep you anonymized if that is an issue you are having. You can keep yourself safe. I'm a really big advocate for Cardano. I think that Cardano and Celcius together, and they are combining soon, are going to really change the whole system, because then that will make it so that it's effortless and attractive to simply have an app on your phone that keeps track of your cryptocurrency. And you can send your cryptocurrency for free to anybody else in the network or anybody outside of the network, which helps encourage its growth. And Cardano is built for scaling from the get-go, and it will soon be getting smart contracts, which means that the only essential problem that we have, which means we unlock NFTs, we unlock voting, we unlock a lot. If you consider yourself an innovator and a focused programmer, get involved in this space. It's just a series of blocks. You can learn about it later. Go learn how to program in it. Start making stuff. Give yourself a faucet so you can have as much currency as you want and play around with different transactions. See what you can do. If you just want to give yourself a new bank account that gives you the rewards that you deserve, sign up for Celcius with the referral code below. It helps me, it helps you. And that is what I am all about. It's just a little bit more democracy, a little bit more fairness, where banks are rewarding us for having money. Why is saving money so hard in our society? It should be effortless. The basic living costs of an individual should be covered. If you give cryptocurrency to the poor, along with a way to easily spend it, or a society that is already accepting of it, they will try to spend it to get things they need. Because this whole class mentality about the rich and the poor and the middle class and the working class and the 1%, all of it needs to be destroyed, because we are all just human beings on a planet. We are a bunch of monkeys spending a series of 24 hours together around a spinning rock in space. None of that shit makes sense. It sounds like I'm making up a fairy tale, because what we feel our lives are like is a story, and it's a story about us, where we have to navigate an environment, a social network, a weird world riddled with artifacts from the past, where relics have an unknown history to us, but we simply adapt and use them. And we discover these things by either going out looking for problems or new things to discover, or by having them thrusted upon us. It is our relationship with the unknown that determines how our lives, what trajectory our lives take. If you see something that is new, that you've never encountered before, and you are curious about it, you can learn advantages to your life, along with pitfalls that you can look out for, up and down. That is what our minds are looking for, is the up and down, based on an emotional network that drives our behavior. We have goals that are meant to satisfy our emotional network and bring us to a good future state, because our lives are short and we're trying to reproduce. We are, after all, DNA. And for some enlightened few, they are simply trying to enjoy their time with pleasant company, or driven to fixing the problems of humanity, or being a center post for their community. We can also actively engage in destructive behavior, or be driven to madness without our own involvement. It's all about what the future holds for you as an individual. And if you are community focused, you love the community and the community loves you, and everybody within that community all love each other. That keeps you strong and safe, which is a main goal of being a human. This is simply how it is. None of us know about what the other 99.99% do. We are so huge we can't comprehend it. There are how many billion humans on this planet? We learned growing up, and as we grew up, we noticed that number keeps getting bigger. Is that normal? And you look back on the graph and you don't really comprehend it. Or maybe some do. Some children who look at the graph and go, what? What? No, what? There were how many people on Earth? How how long ago? Our population growth is a major factor of what is driving. Our population growth is a major factor of what is driving our economy. We have to work extra hard in order to accommodate new people, give them things to do, help them serve all of us so that we can all lead good lives. Or, in the case of the banks and the government, which obviously have no children in them. No, of course not. There's no young people there. They're all segregated community. They're collaborators who are all rich with each other, whose whole reason for existence is to just have a complicated means of stealing, because you don't produce anything. You just manipulate money. That's not useful. We can manipulate our own money. And if we want to put a donation pot together in order to fund a project that we care about, we can do that ourselves. We don't need you. If there's a local businessman who wants to just raise his hand and say, I have a business plan, and then we all look at it, and by all of us looking at it, we can move our money over to them, and a smart contract can look over that process, and we will each receive a stake in his company. We don't need third parties. We can all just do it ourselves. Patreon can be just a bunch of donations going into a pot with a smart contract looking over it. Treasury can be that. Government can essentially be a large pot of money with a number of elected officials who are given a job rather than a leadership position, and that job is to be in charge of their one specialty and to do a good job. You will be entrusted with a large pile of money, and it is your job to use this money to fix the problems. The person in charge of maintaining the roads, here is your money, spend it. You do not have to beg for money from a big pile of elected officials who represent their states. No, we don't need any of that. No, we can simply have a pile of money inside of the blockchain that is automatically taxed away from transactions and placed there. And inside of that pot of money, we then decide what we want to split the money up on based on their input, saying, I think that I would need 25% of this in order to fix the roads and do new ones based on what you want. Okay, so 90% of the people who voted said yes, they want 25%. That is a valid transaction. That amount is then automatically given to their account, and it is now entrusted to them to take care of it so that we can all just go back to living our lives and not worry about it anymore. Which means that if a majority of us want something to happen, we do not have to ask for it to be so. It simply happens, which means instant government. It's just wonderful. So what I am curious of is, if you were listening to this, if there was a way to have direct democracy, what would you put up for a vote so that if it was voted on as a yes or a no, or a decision between 2 or a decision between 6, a multiple choice, it's not even that you can do just yes or no voting anymore. You can use any kind of vote. Anything that you've seen in a poll, from a slider. You could use sliders for voting because it's over the blockchain. You don't have to worry about it. You can just be like, I'm like 75% on this candidate. I'm like 12% on this guy. All of that is automatically calculated, and the result is enacted within a week. What a much better world. It's hard to even comprehend how good our lives could be if we enacted policies that we know we want to happen, and we have looked at the information and we have come to our own decision on what we want to happen, and then we could let that be known on these very specific issues that we all have an opinion about. Those who have voted and want this vote to happen now will encourage more people to vote until and have come to a decision that they want this to happen. Let's say universal basic income. They want universal basic income to happen, and so the laws are enacted and the system changes. It would be amazing. In the description, you will find sources, music, referral code, Patreon, public keys, and a special motivational message just for you. Take care of yourself and each other. Friends, don't let friends spend bank money.